Hey, Bob, guess what?
What?
You don't have to guess. You don't have to guess. It's another episode of Let's Chat Sales.
Let's Chat Sales.
So for this episode,
For this one.
yes, we're going to talk about return on investment, ROI, and the specific tangible benefit that a customer gets, and specifically how you have to think about backing into that. The way this got started, this got me thinking about this, is I was talking to a customer, and we got into this topic, and this conversation helped them to understand how to evaluate where he ought to go with his solution, with his services. So how's that sound?
So the goal here is to figure out the best way to use your money so you get the biggest return on that investment, right?
For the customer.
For the customer.
I'm thinking about how you have to articulate your product.
See that their investment is great, their benefit is greater than their investment.
Yes, exactly. Right.
Okay.
And so it's math. And so it really helps to know how to go about backing into a number that's meaningful enough for the customer that they think, oh, if I spend X, I'm going to get 3X back or 10X back. And that multiple is important to figure out.
And you're suggesting we don't just make it up?
No. And you don't have to. In a lot of cases, you can kind of derive it from based on understanding something about the customer. I mean, you oftentimes can just figure it out and back into it. That's what I mean.
What if it's my first customer? Then I don't have any track record.
And that's a great question. Before we talk about how you get to that number, let's first about figure out just like what we're talking about in terms of the number. And when I think in terms of the number, if people are going to spend money for your services, they have to know that they're going to get more than that value back for those services, right? If they spend $1,000 on you, they might have to get $2,000 or $5,000 or $10,000 back. It really depends on a number of things. In particular, what's the likelihood that they're going to spend that money, and what's the likelihood they're going to get that kind of return? Of course, you got to convince them of that. You got to have good, solid evidence that if you spend X, you're going to get 3X or 5X or 10X back. But more importantly, you have to have some idea what their margins are, because the margins matter for the customer. If the customer's margins are huge, like they're a software company, where their margins might be 60 or 70 or 80%, well, then they can afford to spend more in order to get, ROI can be lower.
Margin being the margin between what it costs for them to get a customer and what they get from that customer.
Yes. Yeah. What it costs.
I'm sorry. I'm just trying to make sure that we're explaining it for the person who might not know all these nuances, because you know this really well. Yeah. I just want to make sure we're clear.
Right. So the margin is like, what does it cost for them to produce their product and deliver it all in? And then what are they charging for it? And that difference is the margin. And so if the margin is, if it's a $10,000 product and it costs them $7,000 to make and deliver, then their margin's 30% or $3,000. Well, then, maybe they'll spend $1,000 to make 3,000. Right. But if their margin is, if their product is 1,000 and it costs 1,000, they won't. Or if it costs 200, they probably won't, because if their margin's 30%, then they're only making $300 on a $1,000 order, and you're charging them 200. They may not do that. They might, but they probably won't, right? Unless there's ongoing revenue. If that customer buys once, but they're going to buy again and buy again and buy again, then they might spend. What's the lifetime LTV, the lifetime value of a customer? If you've got a customer that spends $200 or $500 a month, then you might spend $500 to get them, because you might have them for a month or 3 months or 10 months or a year, in which case it probably makes sense to spend $500 to get that customer.
I had someone that I worked with who had an average customer spend over time with him of about $15,000.
Yeah.
And he was actually spending $5,000 in some cases to acquire them.
Yeah.
Because, it's a fun game when you're trying to spend $5,000 to acquire someone. It's a different animal than, should I buy business cards?
Right.
This was, should I fly into Arizona and pay for the golf and the show?
Right.
But the margin supports that. And I think what so often happens is we don't think about this. I think this is a really great topic, because before I understood it, I just assumed that anyone who had the problem I needed to solve was my customer.
Yeah.
Now I realize you can only be my customer if you have that margin.
Right.
If you're spending $100 to get a customer and you're making $101 every time you sell to that customer, you only sell one time, I'm not your answer, because you're not going to recoup $1.
Yes. It's not going to, that's probably a poor investment. Whereas if your lifetime value of that customer is $5,000 or $10,000, then spending $100 or $500 or even $1,000 or more might be really worth it. And so you, as a salesperson, as a founder, as a creator, you have to figure this out. Like, what's your customer, what's the likelihood that they're going to get value out of your solution, and how much is that value going to derive for them? And that's the important thing to understand. So the way this got started was, I was talking to a customer about, they're going after the low end of the market with the trades. And we'll take electricians, for example. Electricians, well, actually, a better example would be plumbers. So if you're going after plumbers, and it's someone who's going to look on the yellow pages or look on the web and find a plumber to fix a clogged drain, that might be a $200 or $300 visit, probably, something like that. Well, how much can a plumber business afford to get that customer? That may be a one and done sort of a situation where they make $200, $300, and that's all they make on that customer, and that customer may never come back, or the likelihood that that 1 in 10 will come back for something else. But so they might pay $10 or $20 for that lead, maybe more, but probably not a lot more.
Right.
So if you're going to go and sell services to drive leads, or to a solution for a plumbing business, you have to think about what the margin is for that vendor, for that partner, that customer, so that you can charge accordingly. And it may not make sense unless you find a way to do it very, very efficiently, where you can, in fact, deliver a lead or deliver value to a customer at very low margins, at $20 or, that example.
And you need to know this up front, right?
Yeah.
This is not something, and ideally, I would say the discovery process as I'm building out my product or service, I want to know as much of this as possible, because I could have the great solution, but if the great solution costs $4 million because of I want to use aluminum and I want it to be gold plated, but the customer only has $400 to allocate to it.
Yeah, right.
I have a great solution that no one will ever buy.
Right.
Many solutions are great solutions, but they're not built with this in mind.
Right. This is why it's really helpful to know what the customer's cost of sale is, and what the customer's product is, and how much it costs, and what their margins are, because then that helps you to understand what you can afford to charge for your business. And and to your point, it helps you decide what markets to go into. So it's much easier to sell one deal, at least in my opinion, to sell one deal that's worth $10,000 or $20,000 or $50,000 than to try to sell 50 deals that are $1,000, right? Because you got just the time and effort and so forth. And now there are people that do it and they do it very well, but one single $50,000 deal might have a margin of 20, 30, 40%. And if it does, like in software, you typically have margins that are in excess of 50%. So that means they've got $25,000 to spend to get customer acquisition. Right. If they can spend $25,000 to get customer acquisition, they may spend $5,000 for you to get one customer.
Right. And you're not suggesting that if they have a margin of $25,000 that I should price my product at that margin number, right?
Right. unless there's the likelihood that they're going to buy multiple instances of $50,000 with a $25,000 margin. In that case, or they have other products to sell, then it may make sense to charge more than. It may not make sense.
We're not using the margin as a way to dictate exactly. The margin should not be our price, typically.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, at some level, it's going to be the price. The margin is like what they can afford to spend is dependent upon how much the value is of that customer and the profit margin that they gets from the lifetime value of that customer. If the lifetime value,
we do have to explain to them the value.
Yeah,
that's a big part of this, because I went to lunch today at Chick-fil-A.
Yeah,
it was $9.42, and I know I could have cooked my own lunch and it would have been $4 or $5, but the convenience and the fact that it was hot and I knew what it was going to be made that $9.42 a really good value for what I got in that situation.
Right.
On a Sunday or Saturday afternoon, I might not make that choice because, I don't have a meeting. I'm going to go home. I'm going to make a sandwich. I've got the bread, the lunch meat, and all that stuff. So understanding that and understanding your customer in that regard, what is it that equates to value for them? And you can't assume it, because some customers will say, I want a turnkey solution. Other customers are going to say, I want to know that you've done this for a number of years. Other customers are going to say, I want to be new and innovative, and you guys bring me something new. It's all over the place, right?
Right. But I guess what I'm getting at is, those are all part of the value. So what's the value of the product in terms of convenience, but I'm talking about when you think in terms of what are those things, if you can assign a dollar value to those things, to all those things, then when you assign a dollar value, and a consumer experience is really not the same thing. When you buy things because, it's convenient for me as a person because I don't have to go cook, that's a little different unless you value the time of cooking, right? If you're valuing the time of preparing your own meal, then it's going to make sense to go to Chick-fil-A or wherever you go because, you're probably valuing your time at several $100s an hour, right? Which is what I do. And so
I'm a sidekick, so I value it at half of that.
Okay, well, and whatever it happens to be, it's still more than what it costs them to do it at Chick-fil-A. So the point being is you put all those things in. What are all the things that add up? And if you can assign monetary value to those, then some percentage of that you are entitled to. And what's that percentage is the thing's going to take you some time to figure out. And you're going to have to use a few customers. So this gets to your other question, which we tabled for a minute, which was you don't have any of that data, right?
I don't even have a customer.
You don't have a customer. So one way to go about doing it, the way that I'm most familiar with, is you go to customers and say, we want to do this together. We want to figure this out. We want
potential customers.
We want to go, potential customers, same thing.
Okay.
So everyone's a customer to me at some point. Okay. So you go to somebody and you say to them, well, it could be an existing customer or it could be a prospective customer, but you go to them and you say, hey, we're doing this product or this new product and we don't know the value of it. And so we want to work with you together and figure it out. And we're going to give you some sort of preferred pricing as a result, or you're going to get some sort of value, or you're going to get first mover advantage, or you're going to get access to certain features earlier than anybody else. Whatever those values are, that's part of the selling process. In fact, that's probably a whole other podcast. But the short answer there is find somebody that's motivated, that wants to be an early adopter, that has a particular need, that needs particular feature function that you're particularly good at delivering, and then see if you can't work out some way to deliver the solution for them in such a way that you can measure what the value is and then point back to them and say, hey, customer ABC was able to get, an ROI of, 10X, and we want to do the same for you, customer XYZ. So kind of beat that one up. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we did. There are a couple of caveats, and I just want to make sure we're clear about them. One, there's certainly, and you can disagree or agree, I think you'll agree, there's no absolutely correct formula here.
Yeah.
There's also some interpretation. And I've done this with new products in different situations where we've actually gone out and found industry data and kind of extrapolated into it. If this costs this and that costs that, and these companies buy this, then we kind of know we're in this area right here.
Yeah.
And I think the more you do that in advance, the more when you go out and talk to customers, if you have some idea, I would not encourage someone to go out and just say to the customer, I have no idea. I got this really great solution. I have no idea what it should be worth. And, you're not really valuing it at all at that point.
Right. But you can figure out how to value it. And that is like, for example, you can, in the course of discovery, you can find out that there are 3 or 4 people involved in solving the problem today, right? Yep. That are involved. And you could probably figure out that it takes them, solving this problem every week using spreadsheets or whatever they're doing, and they're doing it by hand, and it's taking each of them 3 hours every week, and there are 3 of them, that's 9 hours. And if you value their time at $100 an hour, loaded cost, right? That's what is that? That's $900 a week. That's, that's $3,600 a month. That's 42,000. Do I have that right? 45,000. I'm 44-ish thousand a year right there, right? Just for that one thing. Right. So now hey, listen, you're burning through $44,000 and we want to charge you a license fee of $10,000 a month, $10,000 a year, $10,000 a year. Yeah. That's a 4X. That's more than 4X. And by the way, you're going to keep accruing that value in year 2, in year 3, in year 4. And so you're getting a 4X return on your investment, just that one feature. There may be 3 or 4 other things you do and it piles up. And so maybe that isn't 10,000. Maybe you start charging 20,000 or 30,000 a year for that software or whatever it happens to be. And so that's that's the math you have to go through.
And a lot of companies don't even think this way until you walk them through it.
Yeah, they don't know. Yeah,
You know, they don't think about it because they think we've got 4 employees and they work here and they're getting paid. We're just having them do this.
Yeah, it's just
they're not thinking about learning curve. They're not thinking about the fact that it's something they don't normally do. They're not thinking about that they have to travel. There's a lot of nuances to that when you start to bring it to their attention.
Yeah.
It can really work in your favor because I find with customers like, oh, I never thought about that.
Yeah.
You know, like they'll say, oh, your coaching is so expensive. And I said, well, if it got you to hire one better employee instead of training 3 employees, what's that save you?
Right.
Oh, that would be $10,000, $15,000. Like, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Do you want me to keep going?
And
it really does sell itself. It also shows you or shows them that you really understand what you're talking about. And it gives you ammunition for that next customer to be able to go in and say, hey,
right. But
I know these things, they may be different for you and have a sense of it.
Right. But at the same time, it also allows you to start to understand your market well enough to know, oh, you know what? I can't serve this market very well at this price.
Right.
And now I have to think, oh, this is not the customer I should be going for. And that's what the discovery process allows you to do is kind of figure out, oh, I can't, I don't want to sell to plumbers because their average cost of sale is, their average sale is $250 and I want to charge, that's a volume business and I don't want to be in the volume business that way, et cetera, et cetera. So.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, that's good. I enjoyed that. I learned something in this.
All right. We should do this again.
All right. If we have to.
All right, Bob. I'll talk to you soon, man. Bye.
Yeah.
Okay, that was another episode of Let's Chat Sales, a quick one, of course, and I hope it was helpful. And if it was, please like and subscribe, and more importantly, share it with your friends. There should be something right here you could point to and click on and try that out. It should be good. It's probably good. Certainly short. It's probably helpful. And thanks for listening or watching.